The South China Sea, a shimmering expanse of turquoise waters, rich in resources and steeped in history. But beneath the surface, tensions are simmering, threatening to boil over into conflict. At the heart of this brewing storm is the escalating rivalry between China and the Philippines. Recent events, from aggressive maritime maneuvers to heated diplomatic exchanges, have raised a critical question. Is China on the brink of attacking the Philippines? The stakes could not be higher. The South China Sea is a vital artery of global trade. It holds vast reserves of oil and natural gas. Control of these waters would grant immense economic and strategic leverage. China claims almost the entirety of the South China Sea as its own, based on what it calls historical rights. This claim, enshrined by the ambiguous 9-line, directly challenges the sovereignty of the Philippines and other Southeast Asian nations. The world watches with bated breath. The roots of the China-Philippines maritime dispute run deep, entangled in centuries of history, trade, and shifting geopolitical tides. For centuries, Chinese fishing vessels plied the waters of the South China Sea, reaching as far south as the Spratly and Paracel Islands. These voyages, often romanticized in Chinese historical narratives, form the basis of Beijing's historical rights argument. However, these claims lack clarity and are often contradicted by historical records. The modern iteration of the dispute began to take shape in the 20th century. Following World War II, the Republic of the Philippines emerged as an independent nation, inheriting territorial claims from the Spanish colonial period. Meanwhile, a newly assertive China, under the leadership of Mao Zedong, began to assert its dominance in the region. The 9-line, first drawn on Chinese maps in the 1940s, became a symbol of China's expansive maritime ambitions. In recent years, the simmering tensions between China and the Philippines have reached a boiling point, fueled by a series of provocative actions and heated exchanges. China, emboldened by its growing economic and military might, has adopted an increasingly assertive posture in the South China Sea. This assertiveness has manifested in various forms, from aggressive maritime patrols and artificial island building, to diplomatic pressure and economic coercion. One of the most concerning developments has been the rapid expansion and modernization of China's Navy, the People's Liberation Army Navy, PLAN. The plan has transformed itself from a primarily coastal defense force into a blue water navy capable of projecting power far beyond China's shores. These patrols are often perceived as a deliberate attempt to intimidate and coerce the Philippines. Adding to the tensions is China's aggressive island-building campaign. Looming over this escalating maritime dispute is the specter of China's burgeoning military power. Over the past 3 decades, China has embarked on a relentless military modernization program, transforming the People's Liberation Army, PLA, into a formidable force. This transformation is driven by a potent mix of factors: a rapidly growing economy, advanced technological capabilities, and a deep-seated ambition to reclaim China's historical position as the dominant power in Asia. The PLA's modernization is comprehensive, encompassing all branches of the armed forces. China's Navy, once a relatively small coastal defense force, has undergone a dramatic transformation. It now boasts a modern fleet of destroyers, frigates, submarines, and aircraft carriers, capable of projecting power far beyond China's shores. The South China Sea, with its strategic location and abundant resources, lies at the heart of this ambition. Caught in the shadow of China's growing military might, the Philippines faces a strategic dilemma of daunting proportions. As a relatively small nation with limited resources, the Philippines finds itself outmatched militarily by its giant neighbor to the north. Yet Manila cannot simply acquiesce to Beijing's demands and abandon its territorial claims in the South China Sea. To do so would be a betrayal of its national interest, its international commitments, and the aspirations of its people. The Philippines' strategic options are constrained by a complex interplay of factors: its geography, its history, its alliances, and its domestic politics. Geographically, the Philippines is highly vulnerable. Its archipelago is scattered over a vast expanse of water, making it difficult to defend. Despite these limitations, the Philippines has shown a remarkable degree of resilience and resolve in standing up to its larger neighbor. The escalating tensions between China and the Philippines have thrust the United States into a familiar, yet increasingly uncomfortable role, that of the security guarantor in the Western Pacific. Bound by a decades-old treaty alliance with the Philippines, the U.S. faces a delicate balancing act. It must deter Chinese aggression without provoking a wider conflict. The U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty, signed in 1951, obliges the U.S. to come to the Philippines' aid in the event of an armed attack on its territory, armed forces, public vessels, or aircraft in the Pacific, which includes the South China Sea. The U.S. has responded to this challenge by increasing its military presence in the region, conducting freedom of navigation operations, and providing military aid to the Philippines. Despite these reassurances, uncertainties remain about the extent to which the U.S. would be willing to intervene militarily in the event of a conflict. This strategic ambiguity, while intended to deter aggression, also creates uncertainty and risks miscalculation. As tensions escalate between China and the Philippines, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, finds itself caught in a geopolitical crossfire. Comprising 10 Southeast Asian nations, including the Philippines, ASEAN has long sought to maintain neutrality in the South China Sea dispute. However, China's growing assertiveness and the escalating rivalry between Washington and Beijing are making this neutrality increasingly untenable. ASEAN's approach to the South China Sea dispute has been characterized by a delicate balancing act. The organization has sought to address the dispute through dialogue and diplomacy, pushing for a peaceful resolution based on international law, particularly the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. However, progress on the Coast Sea has been slow, and China's assertive actions in the region have undermined trust and hampered negotiations. Beyond its military might, China wields another powerful weapon in its arsenal: economic coercion. As the world's second-largest economy and a major trading partner for many countries, including the Philippines, China has the ability to exert significant economic pressure to advance its interests and punish those who challenge its claims. This economic leverage has become an increasingly prominent feature of China's foreign policy, particularly in its dealings with smaller and economically vulnerable nations. China has a history of using economic measures to punish countries that challenge its core interests. The Philippines, with its growing economy and its dependence on trade with China, is particularly vulnerable to this form of coercion. This economic interdependence gives China considerable leverage over Manila, which is wary of jeopardizing its economic relationship with Beijing. In the face of China's growing assertiveness in the South China Sea, the international community has struggled to mount a coherent and effective response. The dispute has exposed the limitations of international law, the challenges of enforcing it, and the deep divisions within the global community on how to address China's rise. While there is broad consensus on the importance of upholding international law, particularly the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, translating this consensus into concrete action has proven elusive. The 2016 arbitral tribunal ruling in favor of the Philippines was seen as a landmark victory for international law and a major setback for China's expansive maritime claims. However, China has rejected the ruling, calling it null and void, and has continued its assertive activities in the South China Sea. The international response to China's actions has been fragmented, emboldening China to exploit these divisions to advance its interests. As tensions simmer in the South China Sea, predicting the future of the China-Philippines maritime dispute is a fraught exercise. The situation is fluid, influenced by a complex interplay of factors: domestic politics, economic interests, military capabilities, and the actions of external powers. One possible future is a continuation of the status quo, an uneasy peace characterized by ongoing tensions, sporadic incidents, and diplomatic posturing. Another possible future is a negotiated settlement, however unlikely it may seem in the current climate. In this scenario, China and the Philippines, perhaps under pressure from external powers or driven by a shared desire to avoid conflict, agree to a compromise solution. A more pessimistic, but not inconceivable future, is a slide towards open conflict. Such a conflict, while undesirable for all parties involved, would have devastating consequences for the region and the world. The escalating tensions in the South China Sea, while geographically distant for many, are not merely a regional concern. The stakes in this maritime dispute extend far beyond the shores of China and the Philippines. The South China Sea is a vital artery of global trade, a conduit for energy flows, and a potential flashpoint for great power rivalry. What happens in these contested waters has profound implications for the global economy, the balance of power in Asia, and the future of the rules-based international order. Economically, the South China Sea is of immense importance. It is a major shipping route for global trade, carrying trillions of dollars worth of goods annually. Disruptions to shipping in this vital waterway, whether due to conflict or increased tensions, would have ripple effects throughout the global economy. The South China Sea is also believed to hold vast reserves of oil and natural gas, making it a strategically important energy source. The world is watching closely and the stakes could not be higher.